All right, what is up, everybody? We are back for another edition of Everyday Hoops. Hope you guys are having a good one. Today, I'm going to be grading every first round pick from the 2025 NBA draft, going through all 30 first round picks. I'm going to give a grade and my thoughts and opinions on every pick selected here in today's video. Thank you guys for the views on the videos and the shorts recently. I really appreciate it. If you do like the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. Links to my Twitter and all that stuff down in the description below. And yeah, don't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into it. Well, starting with the first overall pick, the Mavericks selected Cooper Flagg out of Duke. No brainer. We've done this for months and months and months now. They get an A+. I mean, the best player in this draft. Looks like he's going to be a really good player for the future of this team. The Mavericks look out, after trading away Luka Doncic, they get a guy in Cooper Flagg that could come in and help him with the right now alongside Kyrie and AD, but also as a backup plan for the future, so in case this doesn't really work out, they have the future in Flagg where he looks like he's going to be a really good player, does it on both ends defensively, good size, good, IQ, looks like he can have a good offensive game, just looks like a star in the making, you know what I mean? And just, he was the best player in this draft, no question about it. They get A+. And number 2, the Spurs select Dylan Harper from Rutgers. Another pretty easy one that we've known. Dylan Harper is absolutely the second best player in this draft behind Cooper Flagg. The Spurs end up keeping this pick, taking him. They also get an A+. Even though maybe you think about the guard position with De'Aaron Fox, they drafted Stephon Castle in one rookie there last year. Now you bring in Dylan Harper. So maybe you have a lot of guards, but it's a good situation to have. Dylan Harper is the best talent available. If the Spurs, if they didn't want to trade anybody, why not bring in another talented guard that I think could be really, really good in this league? Now you have Harper, Fox, and Castle. All three you can put out in the court. You can feel comfortable at different spots. Harper can learn in a really good organization. He's in a really good spot right now. We already have guys like Fox and Wemby and guys who can learn from. And maybe he's a trade chip down the line in the future. Or maybe you get him and he becomes your lead guy and you feel comfortable getting rid of Fox or Castle in the meantime. But for now, you get the best player available, a really, really good talent. It's a good problem you have over there in San Antonio. So I think they have to get an A+ as well. And number 3, the 76ers take VJ Edgecombe out of Baylor. This is a pick that I really, really like for them. Obviously, everyone thought that Ace Bailey's probably the third best player in this draft and was supposed to be third overall. Many people predicted maybe the Sixers still take Ace Bailey, even though he didn't really want to be there. But I really, really like the pick of VJ Edgecombe here. So for me, they get an A. I think he brings a lot of athleticism to this team, something they kind of need right now. Just brings a lot of heart and hustle. And now you have a nice young nucleus of Maxime McCain and Edgecombe along with Justin Edwards and Adem Bona. Like, you have a nice young thing going on there in case the Joel Embiid, Paul George contending plan doesn't really work out and those two cannot stay healthy. You still have a backup plan of a lot of young guys. And Edgecombe, I think, is a really good situation for him as well. He doesn't have to come in and have too much on his plate right now. He's playing with Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and Paul George. So he can come in, probably won't even be a starter right away. Comes right in, and all he has to do is come off the bench for a couple minutes, give some good effort, some good defensive plays. The jump shot is a little bit of a question mark right now, but he has time now to develop it, because he does have to get thrusted into this big spotlight too early where he has to produce so much. So I think he ends up in a perfect situation. I think the Sixers do the right thing by taking Edgecombe. So for me, they get an A. At 4, the Hornets select Colin Kneppel from Duke. This is a pick I really, really like a lot as well. This one also gets an A for me. I think the Hornets need the type of players like this if they want to continue to take the next step next to LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. Colin Kneppel come in as a guy. I feel like it's just a safe pick. I feel like wherever he went, or whoever team picked him, if it wasn't the Hornets, wherever it go, it would have been a really good pick because he's just a good basketball player at the end of the day. A really good shooter, maybe one of the best shooters in this draft. I got to play the role at Duke that he's going to play similar to in the NBA where he's not going to be like the star main guy. He won't put up the craziest numbers, all that, but he's going to come out and he's going to be a winning player. He's going to impact winning. And I think the Hornets don't really have a lot of players on their team like that. I feel like the past drafts, they've tried to go for the big name, the big hit, the big project, even when it hasn't really worked out well. The only time they really got lucky was with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, which were both number 2, number 3 overall picks. So I think getting a guy like Colin Kneppel really comes in. He's going to complement this team. He could complement LaMelo and Brandon Miller, play with them, play without them. And I think he just brings a good, winning, and impactful basketball player type of mentality to Charlotte that they don't really have a lot. So I really like this pick. They get an A for me. At 5, the Jazz take Ace Bailey out of Rutgers. This was a very surprising one. Kind of the first big, whoa-ish moment of the draft. Bailey was a guy we all knew about his pre-draft stuff, how he didn't work out for any teams. He wanted to go to specific spots, and a lot of reports saying he wanted to go below this. He wanted to go to Washington, New Orleans, or Brooklyn, that 6, 7, 8 range. Also there's a report before the draft that said he made it clear to the Hornets and Jazz that to not take him because he doesn't want to go there. But the Jazz ended up taking him anyway, which is something I mocked in my yesterday's mock draft where I kind of like predicted, I guess, Utah to still take the chance on Ace Bailey because for Utah, they don't have a lot of talent. And Ace Bailey is by far the most talented player, not by far, but he's the most talented player left on this board. And if you're the Jazz, you're thinking, you know what? He might not want to be here fully 100%, but you know what? I don't really mind because he is talented. He's something we need in this organization. We need talent. We need to try to take this team to the next level, and we're going to bring him in here. I mean, he's a big shot creator, tough shot taker, tough shot maker with athleticism, like has a makings of a star player. And now he gets to go to Utah under a really good offensive coach, Will Hardy. They have some decent players over there. He can also still kind of find his rhythm and take his shots. I feel like the Jazz don't really have a player like him on their team. They don't have a wing shot creator that can do the things that Ace Bailey can do. So I think it gets a decent situation there. It gets an A- for me. The only reason it's not maybe an A+ or something is because he doesn't really want to be there. And maybe that could be something that could be a rift in the future or in summer league or whatever, between him and the Jazz and them kind of taking a risk on taking a player that is kind of made it known he doesn't really want to be in Utah and doesn't really like his situation a whole lot right now. So that's the only reason why it doesn't get a perfect grade. But I think the Jazz walk out here still kind of happy that, you get a guy at 5 that was projected to be top 3. At number 6, the Wizards select Trey Johnson from Texas. Johnson, he is a bucket getter. I think he really helps the Wizards a lot. This one also gets an A- for me personally. It wasn't one that I really thought about during my draft stuff, but when I think about the pick and I think about the fit, I like it for the Wizards side of things. I mean, they have a lot of defensive guys and guys that are still trying to figure out what they are. Are they scorers? Are they playmakers? We know what you get with Trey Johnson right away is you get a bucket getter. And I feel like, especially now with Jordan Poole now gone, Trey Johnson comes in and kind of, not saying fills that role right away because Jordan Poole had a really good year last year, but Trey Johnson kind of gets more opportunity and you know what he's about. He's about coming in and scoring, especially gives you a lot more perimeter ability and creation and 3-point shooting. I think it's a really good pick by the Wizards. You also just brought in CJ McCollum, who, you assume he's going to be the by star next year. So you get some, learning from CJ on how to do it. And I think it's just a really good pick from Washington. They're building something really solid over there. So for this pick, it gets an A- for me. At number 7, the Pelicans select Jeremiah Fears out of Oklahoma. This one, it gets another A- from me personally. It was kind of surprising a little bit when I heard the name called, but then thinking about it more and more, I think it makes sense. The Pelicans were a team that I was very interested to see what they did here. Like they're a team that I expected, I could see 5 different ways. And I could see them going a point guard and Kasparis. I could see them going with a big man. Maybe they take a swing on like a Malawak or Roy Boyles for defense. Like I didn't really know where they were kind of going. Here I could have saw maybe Derek Queen at this point. Like I didn't really know. But then when they said Fears, it kind of makes sense. Even though you did just acquire Jordan Poole in a trade. I don't think that stops you from taking another young guard in Fears that showed a lot of potential. They don't really have a lot of ball handlers over there, especially with DeJounte Murray going through his injury. We don't know how long he's going to be on the team, honestly. And the Pelicans, with all the things they got kind of going on right now, it makes sense just to take, best talent available and just figure it out. And I think Fears can do that. He comes in as a really young guy, had a big season at Oklahoma, showed a lot of potential as a guy that can handle the ball, could get to the rim. Has some solid 3-point shooting, potential. And he also comes in, doesn't really have to play a big role right away because you have Jordan Poole now. And you still have DeJounte Murray if he comes back. So you don't really have to thrust him right away in as a starter. He could come in and kind of like come on slowly and develop a little bit slower while the Pelicans still try to figure out what they are as a team. So I think this is a move that at first I was kind of question mark. And then more thinking about it more and more, I was like, you know what? I actually do kind of like it. So they get an A-. At number 8, the Brooklyn Nets select Yegor Demon from BYU. This one was a surprising one. A little bit. Maybe after Ace Bailey was a little bit surprising, but this one was definitely the most like, oh, wow. Okay, that's my first time I said like, oh, wow, in this draft. Demon was a guy that was not projected. I don't know, his projection was a little bit up and down, but most consensus around mid to late lottery-ish, maybe even a little bit outside the lottery. I think my mock draft, I had him going about 17, 18 in that range, but he ends up going 8 to Brooklyn. Not something I kind of expected. I guess Brooklyn is infatuated with the size. I mean, being a 6'8", 6'9" point guard that showed a lot of things at BYU. His passing ability looks really, really good. Has good length and could be a solid defender. The big swing thing is going to be his 3-point shooting. Can he be a good 3-point shooter, especially with a guy that kind of needs the ball in his hands to be a playmaker? Can he become a solid 3-point shooter? This pick, it's a B plus for me. I don't really mind it in terms of the Nets taking a shot on Demi because I feel like they're a team, obviously, especially with what they have right now. They don't really have a lot of concrete things right now going into a rebuild. Taking a swing on a guy like Demon that showed a lot, I don't mind it. I just think maybe you could have traded down a pick or two. I think there was a world where at pick, their next pick was at 19. There's a world where maybe they could have got him, or maybe they could have traded to like 12 or 13 and went and got him. So maybe the pick is a little bit too high. And I think maybe there's some prospects that I like a little bit better in this situation for Brooklyn. But I don't think it's as bad, maybe as a lot of people. You might see a lot of people kind of overreacting a little bit and giving it like a C or something. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that crazy of a pick. I just don't know how much I love it compared to maybe some other guys I could have got, or maybe it's with the value of it being number 8. If this was like number 12 or 13, I would have been like, yeah, this is a good pick. I don't mind it. But it being 8 is kind of like, oh, okay, that's a little bit of a shot you took. But Brooklyn's also a team that kind of, if any team is to take a shot, it's Brooklyn because they don't really have much going on right now. So they must really believe that Yegor could come in and do something nice with them. And number 9, the Raptors select Colin Murray Boyles out of South Carolina. This one surprised me a little bit as well. I thought a lot of my mock drafts and what I thought was Kaman Maluach at this spot because I felt like it was just a match made in heaven with Maluach in Toronto, a big man that doesn't mean the ball. But instead, they go a little bit of a different direction with Colin Murray Boyles. He is a really, really good defender. And thinking about it, this is definitely a Raptor type of guy. A big, long, defensive guy. That's just what the Raptors love. But getting another power forward-ish small wing. Well, he's not really a wing. He's definitely more of a bigger guy, power forward center, even though he's not really tall, but he's got the weight and he's got the defensive capabilities. To maybe play a little bit of small ball 5. The big question is going to be like the 3-point shooting and how much his role is offensively. For me, I gave this one a B. It just kind of confused me a little bit, especially this is only a lot of reason this is a B is because you had Maluach, you had other big men on the board that I really liked a lot better in the spot. Not saying that I don't like the Murray Boyles fit in Toronto. I just feel like the Raptors have Scott. Not saying Murray Boyles is Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes is a way better player, more of an offensive guy. But Murray Boyles, I mean, he's going to help defensively a lot, and just having a lot of length and size is what the Raptors love. I mean, they built a team off that with OG and Pascal, and they just love those type of prospects. Just a very surprising one. I don't know. I think he's gonna do well in Toronto. Interested to see what his position and role is early on. Are they gonna maybe put him at the big man position, especially when you have Scotty Barnes, RJ, and BI already? You have Jonathan Mobo, you drafted last year, you got Caporto still here. Like, you just have a lot going on in his position. That's really the big thing why this is a B, is because his position is kind of loaded-ish a little bit. You have players there already. So unless you think he's gonna come in and maybe kind of be a back line with him and Scotty, and maybe you think he's versatile enough to throw him on the floor, maybe you're betting. I think they may be betting a lot on his 3-point shooting because he's not a great 3-point shooter yet. Maybe he projects to be a decent one, but I think the Raptors may be projecting on that 3-point shooting and his spacing. Along with a lot of guys like Scotty, RJ, BI, who aren't amazing 3-point shooters. Now, they can shoot them once in a while, but they're not elite 3-point shooters. So maybe they're betting that he can become a decent 3-point shooter. I don't know. So I give it a B for this one. Definitely kind of a little bit of surprise. Number 10, the Phoenix Suns take Kaman Maluach out of Duke. A guy that I thought was going to be off the board in Toronto at number 9 when he was there. But now the Suns are able to get him. I give this one an A. I really liked this. I thought this was going to be a flip where Colin Murray Boyles was going to go here to Phoenix, but with him off the board, I think this is the best thing left for them. Getting a guy in Maluach that obviously they've wanted big man play next to D-Book. Now you have Jalen Green. Obviously, you need a good big man. I think Maluach projects as that. I'm a big fan of Maluach's game. A big, huge 7-footer center with really, really long arms that can block shots or rebound and be a lob threat. You know, he doesn't have to do too much. Like they've had centers in the past, like Agan and Nurkic, who kind of have wanted and needed the ball in their hands a little bit to work, and things just haven't gone right. With Malachi, you got a guy that you know he doesn't need the ball. All he needs to do is come in and do the dirty work during his big. And I think with him, you know, especially with that defense they can provide as a rim protector, I think is what the Suns really need. I mean, they could have used this maybe last year, a couple years prior, but getting it now, I don't think it's a bad pick at all. I think Malach is going to be a really good player. I don't know. I really like this archetype of big, I guess, but I really like Malach. I think this is a great pickup for the Suns, especially if Conor Boyles is off the board. I think this is I think this is the next best thing they could have possibly done. So for the Suns, they get an A with this pick. At number 11, the Grizzlies take Cedric Coward from Washington State. This is originally Portland's pick, and the Grizzlies trade up to come get their guy at 11 and Coward because he was still on the board. I think it's a good pick for Memphis. I give it an A minus. Coward has kind of been like the man of mystery a little bit during this draft. He has really risen up boards as the combine has gone on, being a 6'6", 6'7" wing that can shoot the three ball, can defend, has good, you know, length, projects to be a really solid role player with maybe a little bit more upside as well. And being an older guy, I think the Grizzlies, this is like the Grizzlies type of picks that really turn out. Now, the Grizzlies have been a team that have been very good at taking guys and developing them. Now, they've become one of the better teams in the league at, you know, developing players and finding players and really maximizing them. I think it's a really good pick for Memphis. I think this is a pick where it's like, man, you know, this guy might be a mystery. He's 22, coming off shoulder injury. He could come in and doesn't have to do too much. You know, you already have players kind of at his position with Jalen Wells. He could come in and just be a very simple role of shoot the ball and defend. That's all we really need around John Moran, Jaren Jackson Jr. I think if there's a team that I'm comfortable with taking Coward and with Coward going into a turn situation, I think Memphis is near the top of it. So I think it's an A- pick for them. They usually take these picks and make them really, really good. At number 12, the Chicago Bulls select Noah Essenge out of France. He's a guy that's kind of been rising a little bit as well, kind of being maybe a little bit of a project type of guy, and the Bulls end up taking the risk on the project. For this one, I give it a B grade. It's very, very interesting. The Bulls have not been the greatest team in terms of developing. You know, you have Patrick Williams at 4 that has not really been great so far. You took a guy that kind of was a project last year, Montas Buzelis, who had been showing some things. So you already have kind of guys a little bit as his position. I like the defensive, you know, aspect of him. Being a guy that is really good defensively, has some range, can really run in transition, has a potential 3-point shot. It's just, I don't know, I feel like the Bulls kind of already have tried with this archetype of player and it hasn't really worked. Maybe they're thinking, you know what, we're going to keep trying until eventually something hits. And they kind of need talent. And Essenge is a guy that, while he's you know, could be a high reward, he's also maybe a little bit of a high risk depending on the type of situation he goes into. I don't know if this is the greatest of situations he goes into for Chicago. So I give it a B. I think there's a world where it does work out and he, you know, surprises, and him and Buzelis can build a nice little wing, you know, duo over there. But I can also see a world where this doesn't really work, and in a couple years we kind of forget about Noah Essenge. So this is kind of definitely a kind of a risk a little bit by Chicago. So that's why I'm giving it a B right now. At 13, the Pelicans take Derek Queen from Maryland. This is the Hawks pick. The Hawks send this one to New Orleans, but New Orleans does give up their an unprotected first round pick next year. That's, I think, the favorite between a swap between Milwaukee and New Orleans, depending on what the pick is. You know how those get weird. So the Pelicans kind of put a little bit, not saying in the middle of the table, but they kind of risk a little bit by taking, you know, coming up and getting Derek Queen. They must have been really big fans of Queen. This one, he gets a B+ from me. This grade. You do have Zion and Yves Missi kind of as your front court right now, and Queen is a guy that, you know, is kind of, I don't know if he's really a full-time center or a full-time 4. He's got the game to maybe a 4 or 5. I don't really know. That the fit is still the biggest question mark on, like, where does he really fit in the NBA in terms of what is this, you know, position. But he's a really fun player, a really good offensive player, got really good handle, really good skill set, a feel for the game as a big man. The jump shot is going to be a big question mark. Can he be a consistent, reliable 3-point shooter, especially when you already have Zion Williamson over there and he's Missy, both guys who are not 3-point shooters at all. I think that's the reason why it gets a B+, because you already have guys in his position that do similar things. But also, he's maybe probably the most talented player. I think at this point, the most talented player left on the board. And for New Orleans, again, a situation that's kind of weird and you don't really know what's going to be there, what's not going to be there, what direction are they really moving forward. Taking the best talent available is usually most of the time the right thing to do. So I'm going to give it a B plus. I'm very interested to see how he works out in NOLA. At 14, the San Antonio Spurs take Carter Bryant out of Arizona. This one gets an A from me personally. I think besides like the obvious, outside the top five, take out the top five, go from 6 beyond. This is my favorite pick of the draft. I mean, Carter Bryant is like the prototype type of wing that I feel like a lot of teams would want. He's young. He's a really, really good defender. You know, can guard multiple different positions. Looks like he's going to project to be a good defender in the league. Good frame and size. Really good 3-point shooter. Like just your prototypical 3-and-D wing that you could just throw on the court and you feel comfortable with him in many different situations. And for the Spurs to be able to get him at 14 is beautiful. I mean, these are the exact type of players you would want around a Victor Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox when you're building out a contending and a playoff type of team. To get a guy like this at Carter Bryant at the end of the lottery that I think can really come in and play a role and is really going to help this Spurs team for the long run in the future, I think this is perfect. I don't think the Spurs could have done anything better than this. I think this is a pick that we're going to look back on by the end of the season and be like, dang, how did we let Carter Bryant fall? Like, this is going to be one of those picks where you're going to look back in a couple years when the Spurs are in the playoffs and Carter Bryant is a key piece, a key maybe starting wing on this Spurs team. And we're going to think like, dang, they got him too? Like, how do we let them get Carter Bryant? Kind of like how OKC, like, how do we let them get J-Dub and Chet? Like, how do we let them get all these guys? The Spurs, we're going to look back on this pick and be like, how do we let the Spurs get Carter Bryant at 14? Like, this is such a beautiful, amazing pick. Again, outside of the top five, I think this is my favorite pick of the draft. This just falls right to the Spurs left. An amazing pick. And this is something that I think is going to you're going to look back a couple years and be like, dang, what a steal the Spurs got. At 15, the Thunder select Thomas Sorber out of Georgetown. I like this pick for OKC. It gets an A- from me. I think a really, really good pick. Sorber had a really good freshman year at Georgetown. 6'10" big. He is coming off a foot injury, but he showed a lot of different things. Really good, versatile defending wing. That even though he's not a 7-footer or anything, he caused a lot of disruption. Really good length, really, really long arms for his size. Really good moving his feet defensively. Offensively, shows a lot of things with his pull-up mid-range game. Solid basketball IQ, can get into the post, make some decent passes. The big thing's obviously going to the three-point shot. But I think it's a great pick for OKC because it's like, he's a guy that's kind of like an insurance pick for later. You know, he's still young. He's coming off surgery and whatever, but he doesn't really need to be thrown into the fire right away. You still have Chet Holmgren, Isaiah Hartenstein, the other Jalen Williams. You still have all of them, so he can just come in and kind of rehab and learn right away, but also fits with the defensive mindset of this OKC team and also could give him a different look offensively. Kind of like if Hartenstein leaves, he could come in and kind of necessarily fill the role of Hartenstein. He's not as good of a passer as Hartenstein, but he maybe brings a little bit more of a different game with his, mid-range jump shooting and his post play and his decent passing ability. Like, I think he's just come in and fit right away in another year or two when Hartenstein maybe is not affordable anymore and, they need some of their guys on the bench to start playing. Swoper could come right in and I think could fit this team. So I think this is a amazing pick for OKC. They get an A- from me. At 16, the Portland Trailblazers select Hansen Yang out of China. This was the biggest shocker of the night in the NBA draft. Hansen Yang was a guy that wasn't even really projected to be a first-round pick at all, and he ends up going in the 16th overall. The Blazers trade down from 11 down to 16 and take him. Definitely a big shocker. This is a guy that wasn't really on many people's radars at all until the NBA Draft Combine, where he started going nuts and having some big highlight plays, got a little bit of traction, but I did not think that it would end up in him being a 16th overall pick, but here we are. This one gets a C+ from me for Portland. Very interesting. It's just very kind of like, wow, they must really, really believe what they saw at that Combine. He's a big 7'2" big, high IQ guy, makes some really, really nice passes. Good shot blocker. He's a good basketball player with good IQ. It's just very intriguing to see him go this high. Like, I honestly believe if they would have rated, they probably could have traded into the second round or got him. Maybe they could have traded into the 28th, 29th pick and probably would have got him still. I don't think anybody was really going to take him in this mid-first round range. So I think you probably could have waited a lot more. to get him. You did draft a big 7-footer in Klingon last year, but Yang probably has a different, definitely has a different type of game than Klingon. But just very interesting to see you take another big in the mid first round with size that's probably going to play the same defensive type of situation. He can definitely play with the ball and maybe pass a little bit more, and probably a project type of player. It's a very, very interesting pick. It's definitely a pick. It's like, wow, they must really, really believe that he's going to be a good, like, they must really believe they can develop him and he can work out and it'll be fun. I mean, he's obviously going to be a guy that's probably going to be a fan favorite. They're going to root for him because of his game, and he's very exciting to watch. But it's just like, it was definitely a big, like, wow. Kind of similar to maybe like what AJ Johnson last year with the, when he was projected to be like the 40th something pick, and the Bucks took him like 23rd, 24th. Like, it was like a wow type of pick. But we'll see how it works. At 17, the Minnesota Timberwolves select Joan Beringer from France. They take the big man. He's been kind of rising up draft boards a little bit recently with his size, how raw he is. 18-year-old big, 6'11" with 7'5", 7'6" wingspan. That just started playing basketball only a couple years ago, not that long ago. For this one, they get a B for me from Minnesota. Definitely was expecting maybe more of a guard. I wouldn't be surprised if like Jacko Jonas went here, or they went a guard or maybe a wing position, but they end up going big. Definitely not a win or ready right now type of player. But I still think it's a solid pick by Minnesota because it's kind of like a for the future, kind of like what Rob Dillingham was last year, where they took Rob Dillingham for like, okay, we know Mike Conley's not gonna be around for that much longer. So Mike Conley goes, he'll be next up, and they probably think the same for him. Where it's like if Rudy Gobert age is not great and we trade him in another year or two, then maybe we hope that this guy can kind of fill his role. He's a big center that could block a lot of shots, you know, catch a lot of lobs, very, very athletic, big, long center, kind of that prototypical kind of rim running, block shots, rebound the ball, catch lobs type of big. So I think it's a solid move from them. Definitely wasn't kind of the role and the kind of thing I was expecting for them to do, but I don't think it's bad at all. So I think it's a B. At 18, the Utah Jazz select Walter Clayton Jr. out of Florida. This pick was originally the Wizards, but ends up getting swapped over to Utah. They swap 18 and 21. For the Jazz, I think it's a solid pick. For me, it gets a B plus. Kind of a guy that comes in for Utah, maybe isn't the most high upside type of talented player like that, but he's someone that's a little bit older, already has a lot of experience being on the championship winning Florida team, a guy that's grinded and hustled hard to this moment. Very happy for him that he goes and becomes a mid first round pick, where before the year, he probably was a second round type of guy. So very nice for him. But he comes in right away, kind of ready to play right now for the Jazz, gives him a little bit more of a, I'm gonna say veteran leader, even though he's not played a second in the NBA yet. But just gives someone kind of that's ready to play right now. You could throw him in, and you don't have to worry about developing him too much. Shot taker, shot maker, guy that can play with the ball in his hands. Just gives you a different look compared to a lot of the other guys they're bringing in that are 19 years old, that still have a lot of more developing to do. Just comes in as kind of a guy that's ready to play right now, that can help with the 3-point shooting and help maybe run the offense that Will Hardy does. So I think it's a B plus. I think it's a pretty good pick. I would have loved if he fell to Miami right here, but I don't think it's a bad situation at all for him in Utah. At 19, the Brooklyn Nets select Nolan Traore from France. The Nets having a lot of picks in this draft. They end up taking a guy in Traore who was early in the season before the year started projected to be a top 5, a top pick in the draft. Then kind of stock kept falling a little bit, and the Nets take him at 19. I think I took him in my mock draft with the Nets with their 26th pick, but I still think it's a solid pick here. They get a B plus as well for me. For the Nets, again, being a team that doesn't really have a lot going on right now, doesn't have a lot of concrete things, why not take a shot on a guy that was projected to be really high, that maybe he's not, his stock fell a little bit, but you believe still has a lot of talent, because he's still talented as a point guard that is a really good ball handler, really good passer, crafty finisher, being able to get to the basket and get to the rim and all that stuff, the 3-point shot. Some other things are question marks, but if you're the Nets, you kind of have the luxury and the expense of being able to say, you know what, you were projected to be very, very high and you have a lot of talent in you, so we're just going to take you and find out. So I think it's a good pick for the Nets. At 20, the Miami Heat select Gaspar Jacques-Jonas out of Illinois, probably the biggest faller in this draft. The guy was projected to be about a top 10, top 7, 8 type of range pick. He ends up falling all the way down to number 20. I think if you're the Miami Heat, this is good value right here. This also gets another B plus, even though maybe he doesn't fit in right away as the Miami Heat type of player. I think at this point in the draft, when you're the 20th overall pick, you see a guy that was projected to be top 10. It's kind of like, why not take a chance on him? I mean, he still has some good things about him, being a bigger point guard that is a solid ball handler, really solid passer, can shoot the three ball pretty well, which is something the Miami Heat need. Another ball handler that can shoot the three and do different things. The big question is going to be kind of like his creation and scoring ability. You know, how much is that really going to be able to translate to the NBA? But if you're Miami, you're already going into a situation where, you know, a team that really knows how to develop talent, and a team that, you know, knows how to put different young players in different positions to succeed. So again, if, like I said earlier about the Grizzlies when they drafted Cedric Howard, if there's a team that I'm not gonna really question about what they do and all that stuff in terms of drafting and stuff, and a team that I feel comfortable with different prospects going to, it's gonna be Miami. So for Kasparis, I think this is a solid situation for him. He ends up going to a team that already is kind of trying to win. They already have good players around him. He doesn't really need to do too much right away. He could just be a ball handler and knock down some open shots when he gets them. So I think this is a B plus. At 21, the Washington Wizards take Will Riley out of Illinois. The Wizards were at 18. They swap with Utah, so now they get 21. And take Will Riley. That also another pick that I like. Riley's a guy that's still kind of raw. He's big 6'8" guy. Still needs to really work out, you know, his strength and his frame a little bit. He's still kind of skinny. But showed a lot of things at Illinois, especially near the end of the year, where he was, you know, has some potential as a creator. You know, he's got good, you know, size on him where maybe he could be a solid defender. He could play on the ball and off the ball. A little bit. He can make some passes. Like, he has a lot of potential in him. I think the Wizards, this is kind of a great opportunity to take. So it's another B plus for me. I really like this pick. I know a lot of these picks are going to be the same as a lot of B pluses. And spoiler alert, the rest of this draft is going to be a lot of Bs and a little bit of A's here and there, but a lot of Bs. We also have to understand that at this point in the NBA draft, once you get past like 15, 16 to the 20s range, especially, there's not really such thing as a bad pick at this point in the draft because all these guys are kind of around the same thing. And once you get picking the 20s, you're not picking a generational talent. You're not picking to try to find the next superstar that's going to lead your team to an NBA championship. You know, that's very, very, very rare that you see guys turn into that. So at this point, you're just trying to pick guys that maybe can fit your team and maybe guys that you think could potentially be an NBA player at one point down the line, because there's a surprising amount of guys that get picked at this point and don't really become anything in the NBA. So the goal changes into trying to get a guy that's gonna, if you're taking a top 5 pick, top 10 pick, obviously you're trying to think of a guy that's gonna, you know, change your franchise, be a starter, maybe be an all-star one day. At this point in the draft, you're just trying to kind of drafting based off, do we think this guy can stick around on our team for a little bit? And so most of the times you're gonna see a lot of teams getting B's and A's, maybe a C sometimes at this, but never like a low grade, because at this point it's like, how can you really make a bad pick at this point in the draft? So that's why a lot of these picks are going to be B's and A's and whatever, because it's like, you can't really make a bad pick at this point. And I think for the Wizards, this is a pick that I like. The Wizards have a need for talent, and they took it with Trey Johnson earlier. They take it with Will Riley here, just a young guy that they hope they can develop. They have a lot of veterans now that hope it can help a lot of these guys, you know, for the future. And why not get some more scoring punch with this team? At 22, the Brooklyn Nets take Drake Powell out of North Carolina. This is a pick they acquired yesterday in the Kristaps Porzingis 3-team deal. The Nets just ended up acquiring another first-round pick, which, because why not, you know? And Powell, a little bit of a surpriser. I give this one a B-. I think it's a little bit of a surpriser, a guy that was probably projected around early second round, maybe late first round, but the Nets ended up taking him kind of late first round. Guy that, was a high touted prospect. Goes to North Carolina, doesn't have an amazing freshman year or an amazing couple of seasons, but still ends up, you know, going to the draft and putting his name in and still ends up getting picked. Defensive guy that has a lot of potential as a defender, good size, about 6'6", 6'7", you know, like good size, good defensive instincts, all that stuff. The big question is going to be the offensive game and the jump shot. You know, how real is the jump shot? Can he become a shooter in the league? I think for the Nets, it's a solid swing. You know, again, at this point in the draft, there's not really any bad picks. So why not kind of like a little bit similar to what they did with Traore with their last one, where it's like, why not just take a guy that, you know, was highly projected? You know, maybe his stock fell a little bit, but he was talented enough to be projected that high for a reason. So he's got to have some good in him. So why not take him? So I think it's a B-. I think it's a solid pick. I would have liked maybe some better options a little bit with this one. But again, it's not a bad pick at all. So B minus. At 23, the Atlanta Hawks take Asa Newell out of Georgia. Newell's a guy that fell a little bit as well, projected maybe around, the end of the lottery, ends up falling. The Hawks make a trade to the Pelicans, to acquire this 23 pick, trading down 10 spots. And still getting a guy that they probably could have took at 13. They get a guy that they still took him at 23. So I think that's good. This gets a B plus from me. I think this is a really solid pick for the Hawks. Newell, big energy guy, energy 4 to 5, high motor, solid defensive capabilities, a lot of offensive rebounds and putbacks. I think he goes to a good spot in Atlanta where he doesn't have to do too much right away. They still have a lot of size already next to him. And if you're Atlanta, an athletic big man is what you want around Trae Young. So getting a guy like Newell that's going to, bring a lot of energy and hustle and intensity. And it's a guy that Trae Young's going to be able to throw the ball up to. And he's going to get it. Also a guy that's going to get a lot of offensive rebounds and kickouts. So I think this is a solid pickup for Atlanta, especially with the value. Getting a guy that you probably could have got at 13. You still get him at 23. That's pretty good. So they get a B plus. At 24, the Sacramento Kings take Nick Clifford from Colorado State. This is Virgil OKC's pick, but they traded to Sacramento and they end up getting Clifford. I think it's an A minus. I absolutely love this pick for the Sacramento Kings. Clifford is a guy that I've been saying through mock drafts and stuff. Like, I think wherever he goes, whatever team he ended up with, he was going to find a way to be able to produce. He's just one of those guys. 4-year guys, one of the older guys in this class, but he does a little bit of everything. He's the ultimate Swiss Army knife. He can shoot the ball, he can score, he can get to the basket, he can handle the ball, he can defend, he can rebound, he can pass, he can just do whatever you kind of ask. He's one of those guys, whatever you ask him to do, whatever role you ask him to be, he can do it. And he'll do it pretty well. He'll make an impact at some point on the court. And I think the Kings need these type of players. The Kings don't have many players that are able to do that. And especially with, I don't know what's really going on with them. I don't know what they're going to look like going in next year. But having a guy in Clifford that is older, could play right away with this team, no matter who's playing. If he's playing next to Levine and DeMar and Sabonis and all this, he'll find a way to impact on the court. And for the Kings to be able to walk in without a draft pick in the first round and end up taking a guy that probably absolutely could have been in the lottery, could have been like the 13th, 14th overall pick, maybe even higher a little bit. Like, I think that's an amazing move for Sacramento. I really, really do like this for them. So they get an A minus for me. At 25, the Orlando Magic select Jace Richardson from Michigan State. There's another pick that I really, really like. It also gets an A minus for me. I think this falls perfectly into Orlando Magic's hands. Richardson, a guy that helps with their perimeter shooting. We know the Magic don't have a lot of guys that can shoot the 3-ball. Jace Richardson can shoot the 3-ball. Really good perimeter shooter last year, efficient perimeter shooting last year. When he got on the spotlight at Michigan State, he's still very, very young. He is a little bit smaller. He's still only about like 6'1" but if he could come in and help with the perimeter shooting a little bit, I think this is just a perfect pick kind of for Orlando. I think Orlando couldn't really do much better than this pick for Richardson. If he could, especially if he could compete defensively, which I think he will be able to do, because I think to be able to get on the floor and be a starter for Tom Izzo-led Michigan State team, you have to contribute on that end. I think he did a really good job of that last year when he really popped on the scene late. So I think with the skill set he has, I think what he can bring to this Magic team is something that they definitely need. Again, this is feel like a pick that falls right into their hands. They didn't really have to do much. They just got it. So I think it's a great pick. It's just an A minus. At 26, the Brooklyn Nets take Ben Saroff from Israel. Also played in France. Well, he's from France. He is Israel, but he's from France. He played with Noah Sengue on their French team. I think Saroff, he's a bucket getter. Guy that's really good creating with the ball in his hands. A lefty that can, is crafty, get to the basket, solid shooter, solid with the ball in his hands, do all that stuff. Still needs some development. It's very interesting to see his athleticism, how that could translate. He's not a very fast or physically imposing type of guy, but he's able to get to the rim and score. And against NBA defenders, how's that going to really look? Can he improve like his playmaking and stuff like that? That's going to be a big question mark. I think I get a B for the Nets. I think it's a solid pick. Getting a guy that can score the ball, is young, still has a lot of potential, stuff to grow. You haven't really gotten the 3 picks you gotten are not guys that really put pressure on the rim in terms of getting buckets and scoring. They're more passers and defenders. So getting a guy that could score, I think is solid for them. I think it's just a good pick, a solid pick. So I think it gets a B. At 27, the Brooklyn Nets select Danny Wolf from Michigan. The Nets used all 5 of their first round picks, which is a interesting thing. Maybe they're trying to make calls and no one picked up the phone. But they taken 5 rookies, I guess. And I think this is my favorite pick of all the Nets ones. For Danny Wolf, I think it's A minus. Wolf is a very intriguing guy, 7-footer that is really skilled. He can handle the ball. He played a lot of kind of point center for Michigan last year. He does like 4 or 5 pick and rolls. He can shoot the ball. He can make some great passes. He can read the floor very well. Like, he's got a very interesting game. I think if you're at 27 and you're Brooklyn, especially if you're taking all guards and stuff, like, why not take a chance? I really do like this dice roll for the Brooklyn Nets. Getting a big 7-footer that's really, really skilled, that maybe in the right situations can really pop. The big question is going to be his position. Like, is he a center? Can he play some forward? He's not an elite shooter, but he also is not a great, lateral quick or an amazing defender. So it's interesting to see what his position is going to end up being in the NBA. But one thing's for certain is that he has some skill, and play the cards right for the Nets, and they could get themselves a really, really nice big man. So I really am a big fan of this pick. I think it's an A minus for me. At 28, the Boston Celtics select Hugo Gonzalez from Spain. This one kind of surprised me a little bit. It gets a B minus from me personally. Gonzalez is a solid player. Got good size, 6'7", 6'8", can put the ball in his hands, can get to the rim, can shoot, solid, getting to the rim, off the dribble, stuff like that. Definitely still a little bit of a work in progress. But very solid. Kind of surprising for the Celtics to pick up though. I thought the Celtics maybe were gonna go with an older, guy, maybe more of a center, maybe more of a guy you could plug in right now and play. Gonzalez is a little bit more of a project type of player. I think it's solid. Again, at this point, there's no really bad picks in the draft, so it still gets a B minus. It still can definitely work out. I think I saw he's coming maybe to the NBA and gonna play for the Celtics next year. Just was kind of surprised by the direction of this pick. I thought maybe it was gonna be a center or more ready to play right now type of guy. At 29, the Charlotte Hornets select Liam McNeely from UConn. This is originally the Suns pick. It ends up getting traded to the Hornets, and they take McNeely, a guy that early in the year was probably a lottery projected type of pick. Even still, I thought maybe a mid first round pick. He ends up going very late in the first round. I think it's a really good value for the Hornets. They get a B plus from me. Another guy that could come in, I feel like could just play good, solid, impactful basketball. He doesn't really have a big role early on. He just come in and shoot the ball and space the floor. I think they picked with both these guys, Kneppel and McNeely, guys that can space the floor, shoot the ball. McNeely can be a solid connecting piece. He can you also have some of the ability to maybe put the ball on the floor, maybe do a little bit more. But you also still have Brandon Miller and other guys, so you're not really asking him to do all of that right now. So I think it's a really good pick, especially at the value at 29, getting a guy that was projected to be a lottery pick at one point during the year. I think that's really good for Charlotte. So you get a B plus. And with the 30th pick, the final pick of the first round, the LA Clippers select Yannick Conan Niederhauser from Penn State. A big center, a guy that wasn't really on many people's radar until very, very, very recently. A big center, big long center that is your typical rim running, shot blocking type of guy. Not going to really be able to have it to do too much when he goes to the Clippers. It's a B for me. I think it's just a really solid pick. Getting a big center that could come in and give you some good minutes. James Harden loves his centers that can, he throw lobs too. And he can definitely do that. Kind of has maybe like a Jackson Hayes, Daniel Gafford, like that type of mold of big that I really like. That is just not going to be asked to do too much. Just rebound the ball, block some shots, and go up there and catch those lobs, and the point guards throw them up to you. I think Niederhauser, can do that. Very tough name to say. But Niederhauser can do that from Penn State. And I think it's just a really solid pick, so they get a B for me. Yeah, it's going to be it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know down in the comment section below what your favorite and least favorite picks were in this NBA draft. Once again, if you do hit the content around here, consider subscribing, liking, turn on notifications, doing all stuff like that. I'd really appreciate it. It really helps out a lot. And yeah, I'll see you guys tomorrow.